Hello, welcome. This is Vibrato Series 2 of 2. So, last week, just to recap if you weren't there, we talked about what vibrato is. We did some exercises to help kind of kickstart your vibrato. And we also talked about a few elements of vocal technique that, if there's an issue with one of those elements, those being chord compression, resonant space, relaxation, and breath support or body engagement, if there's an issue in one of those areas, that could be what's inhibiting your vibrato if it's just not coming for you. Um, the focus of today is on vibrato control. So I will assume that if you're here, you have some access to vibrato. And again, vibrato is this natural fluctuation or oscillation in pitch. So to sing with vibrato, versus no vibrato or what we call straight tone, where there's no variation in pitch. Hi, Nick, and hi, Mark. So let me give you just a quick kind of bird's eye view of what we'll cover today. We'll talk about recreating natural vibrato. We will practice straight tone and vibrato. Um, you might hear a lot of vibrato, especially in different genres like classical music or musical theater. But the reality is, a lot of singing is straight tone. Vibrato is used as a stylistic tool or to add, emotion, or it just naturally appears in the voice. But there is a lot of singing that is straight tone. So if you are not easily accessing your vibrato yet, that does not discount you from singing. It will come eventually. I know you've probably heard that before, but it will. And we'll talk a little bit about some ways to work with a vibrato that is not sounding right to you. So, the two main issues that we have with vibrato speed are an overly fast or narrow vibrato. So, again, I'm going to sing with my natural vibrato. Ah, a tremolo that's that overly fast or narrow vibrato might sound more like ah. On the opposite end of the spectrum, a wobble is overly slow or wide, and that might sound like ah. So if you find that your vibrato is very fast or very slow to the point that it bothers you, then we'll talk about some things to work on and bring that vibrato to a more pleasing speed for your ear. But I'm going to say this now and I will say it again. People's vibrato speeds differ. So if your vibrato is faster than mine or slower than mine, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. I'm including this just because you might be interested. But please, if your vibrato speed is different than mine, there's a range, and we all have different vibrato speeds. Okay, so we'll see how much we can get to. I have plenty more material to go through, but let's see how far we get first. First on the dock is recreating natural vibrato. So I'm going to take a song maybe most of us are familiar with, Can't Help Falling in Love with You, and I'm going to guide us through singing it. I will bring up the chords. This is the song that starts with wise men say. Okay, probably you've heard it at a wedding at some point or other. So I'm going to play a little bit of this, and I would love for you to sing along. Um, I'm trying to think of what a good key for most of us would be. Probably the key of C. Wise men say. That way, high voices can be up here with me, low voices can be down here. Though now that I'm thinking about it, it does get quite low. It does get quite low. And not all low voices are going to have that low G. So maybe let's do key of D instead. Wise men say. And then if you're a lower voice, you can be down here. wise men say. Okay. So, um, we'll just do the very first bit. So it's wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. And then shall I stay? Would it be a sin if I can't help falling in love with you? We won't do the chorus, the like a river flows section, but go ahead and look up the lyrics for Can't Help Falling in Love with You, and you can sing along with me. I'm going to transpose to the key of D. And you're either, if you have a voice that sounds kind of like mine, you're going to sing with me starting on D4. Wise. If you have a voice significantly lower or deeper than mine, you're going to be one octave lower on D3. And if you don't know what that means, you can pull up a chromatic tuner, give it access to your microphone. So one would be tuner.ninja. You just type that into Google, it'll come up. It's just a website and it analyzes your pitch and shows you what you're singing. Okay, so the purpose of this, of us singing kind of a nice, easy song, is to see where we hear our natural vibrato showing up. Okay, so it's okay if you don't hear any. But I want you to have your ears open, be listening to yourself as you sing, and just ask the question, where am I not hearing straight tone? Where am I hearing a little variation or fluctuation in pitch? Okay. I'll sing it once through and then I'll just play chords for you so that you don't have the distraction of my voice. You can hear yourself a little more clearly. Beginning, starting notes. Ready? Here we go. Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. This next verse, I'm going to hang out, so I'll just play for you. Here's your starting notes again. 2, ready, go. Shall. All right. It's okay if you sang the same words twice. So, where did you hear vibrato coming in for your voice? For me, if I go back to the beginning, wise men say. Zero vibrato on wise and men, but I hear vibrato on say. Only fools rush in. Again on in. But I can't help. So I heard it on I, but I can't help. And by the way, I'm not trying to place vibrato anywhere in particular. It's just naturally happening at those times. So I'm noticing where it's happening. Falling in love with you. So the spots where you're most likely to hear vibrato, we talked about this last week. You're going to hear it at the points in your range that are most comfortable and relaxed. But within the context of a song, you're going to hear vibrato probably at the ends of phrases or the ends of musical sentences. For example, wise men say, that was one phrase, only fools rush in. And then you also might hear it on sustained pitches. That's pitches that we're holding for a little bit of time, like, but I. There's time there for the vibrato to release or ring. You're less likely to hear vibrato on pitches that move by quickly. But I. You're probably not going to hear, but I on but, right? Vibrato needs a little bit of time. So notice where you're hearing vibrato naturally come in, and then see if you can recreate it. Um, Mark was saying I had it particularly on the words love and you. Forgot to pay attention to the rest. That's okay. I'm glad you bring that up because it is very difficult to multitask, to be singing and listening to yourself at the same time. That's tricky. So, if you are in the same boat, you might record yourself and then listen back. Um, so, the next step would be, can I recreate what my voice just naturally did? So if we took the end there, falling in love with you, could you recreate vibrato on love and you? What that's doing is it's not only you're noticing where your voice naturally releases vibrato, but you're starting to develop the skill of releasing your vibrato on purpose or on command. And as I mentioned before, or I think last week, most singers are singing with some vibrato. They just can't control when it happens. And so, this is a really important and hopefully natural feeling exercise for you to try is notice where it's creeping into your singing and then see if you can recreate it. Again, the whole purpose here is acquiring this skill of releasing your vibrato intentionally when you want it to be there. This is important for singers of all genres. I would say, particularly if you sing pop or contemporary music. Um, the kind of stereotype about classical singers or opera singers is that they're just letting their vibrato go all over the place. They're not really restricting it or restraining it, but that's stylistically appropriate. Um, that's why though it is an important skill to develop because if an opera singer or classical singer then tries to sing contemporary music and is not used to ever restricting their vibrato, it sounds like it doesn't quite fit. Um, okay, so if you wanted to take this a step further, you could do this also within an exercise. So let's say within a specific vocal exercise, you're hearing vibrato at a certain spot. See if you can recreate that vibrato. Okay, next step, kind of utilizing that skill of releasing vibrato on purpose, we're going to practice straight tone and vibrato and alternating the two. So the first will start with straight tone. And then we'll end with vibrato. Our pattern is just a simple 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 pattern. And it should feel relatively natural for you to sing with straight tone throughout those first few pitches. And then our goal is, can we relax and let that vibrato go on the ending? Okay, so you're starting at either G4 with me or G3 down one octave lower. And we'll just try a few of these, see how it goes. Um, I think it's helpful to add a physical movement, especially you're having a hard time with either the straight tone aspect or the vibrato aspect. So you might move your hand in a smooth straight line for the straight tone section, and then you might give that hand a little bit of a shake when it's time to add vibrato. Again, using your hand as a guide. Here you go. Ready and sing. A little bit lower. Keep going. Giving plenty of time for that vibrato to come. I'm going to walk us back up to where we started. And I want to remind you that you can use another vowel or syllable if that's easier for you. So I'm suggesting E. Now I'll suggest oo as we walk higher. But if O or ah or feels better for you, please use that instead. So we're going to start right here. Or that's A flat 4 or A flat 3. And now on oo. Ooh. Again, straight, 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 straight vibrato. But swap it out with another vowel if that's more comfy for your voice. Here we go. Walking up this time. Relaxing at the end. Last one. Okay, so hopefully that felt natural for you. Like I said before, your vibrato is most likely to show up at the ends of phrases or on long sustains. So we're kind of building that into the exercise. If you want more of a challenge, this is what's coming. So we're going to sing up and down, just a 5-tone scale on oh. But what we're going to do here is alternate straight tone and vibrato. The first 2 pitches straight, oh, then vibrato, oh, then back to straight tone, oh, back to vibrato, oh, and end on straight tone, oh. So if you put it all together, oh, tricky. Just try a few of these. I know this might be a little bit beyond a beginning singer's level, but it's a good exercise for control. Give it a try. Starting with straight tone, every 2 pitches, that's when you switch. So straight, vibrato, straight, vibrato, straight. 2, ready, sing. Try another. Two more. If you found that challenging, I'm not surprised. That is a very tricky one. If you were like, "Oh, wow, I could actually do that," then cool. um, okay, so going to those 2 common issues that we tend to have with vibrato, either a tremolo being overly fast, ah, or a wobble being overly slow, ah. Starting with tremolo, so, a tremolo or overly fast vibrato, overly narrow vibrato, usually is going to be caused by excess tension or inadequate resonance space. So, think back to those elements from last week. We talked about needing relaxation and resonance space. So, if there's an imbalance there, if we have too much tension that we're singing with or holding in the body, and if we don't have enough space a tremolo could result. I want to reiterate, singers can have fast vibrato and it's not problematic. If you listen to Amanda Seyfried in like the Mamma Mia soundtrack or Into the Woods, um, anything else that she's sung on, she has a pretty fast vibrato. Um, and it's beautiful. It sounds natural, sounds like her voice is, healthy. So if your vibrato is close to hers and you're like, "Oh, yeah, nothing no problems here," then totally fine. If you're bothered by the sound of your overly fast vibrato though, this is what we're working on here. So, first, we want to address the resonant space issue, particularly if your tendency is to not sing with a lot of space. If your mouth is pretty closed when you're singing, we are going to fix that. So, I'm going to have you sing on an ah, really, really rich ah. And I encourage you to let your jaw drop. Remember that the jaw naturally hinges down and back. So we're not forcing the jaw straight down. No, you're letting your jaw drop naturally, and you're going to feel it hinges down and back. That's just what your body does. So let your body do what it naturally does. Imagine you're yawning. Or imagine you're just totally zoned out. Like you're sitting in class and it is hot and it's afternoon and like the bell's about to ring and you're just, you know, zoning out, your jaw's dropping. That's the same relaxed feeling that we want. So we're singing on ah. It's okay if it kind of sounds and feels a little bit yawny. I want you to inhale thinking that ah space. Ah, and see how my face is pretty dead? Ah. That'll help us with relaxation as well. So kind of dead, tired, zombie, jaws naturally hinging down and back. And when you inhale, prepare for that relaxed space. So rather than just breathing and then having to make all these changes, breathe with that relaxed zombie falling asleep sort of. Oh. Okay, the point here is really not to sound beautiful, it's to relax and create space. So, let's do it. You're starting F4 or F3. Here we go. Kind of yawny. Again, we're not worried about the vibrato on the descent. We're just trying to relax as much as possible on the sustain. All right, here you go. Cool. If your mouth is really closed, it's a lot easier to have that overly fast or narrow vibrato. Okay. Um, Second exercise, I want you to move around the room for this one. Unfortunately, I can't because I have to stay in front of this mic. But if I had a Britney Spears mic, um, walking around the room, rolling out your shoulders, swinging your arms back and forth, nodding your head or shaking your head no from side to side. All of that is great. Just chill out. I had a singer with a tremolo once, And for this singer, the thing that worked best for him was sitting in like an armchair or a sofa and just letting himself relax in that position. Um, and he got used to singing in a more relaxed way with less tension in his body. And then he was able to take that same relaxation into a regular seated posture and then eventually standing. Um, but of all the exercises we tried, that was the thing that worked the best for him. So I want to encourage you, walk around the room or take a seat, a relaxed seat. Um, yeah, anything that helps you relax. Sometimes when we come to singing, it's almost this subconscious kind of tension that we hold in our bodies, and it can be helpful to get us out of singing mode, in this case, out of regular singing posture, to help your body relax and not go into that subconscious tension or tightness that it's used to. And this is very, very simple. We're just going for a nice, rich, resonant hum. 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 Walking around the room, doing some laps or sitting down as relaxed as possible. Notice there can be space inside your mouth and throat to hum. So first pretend like you're going to say and then just close the lips. So and then mm. That's it. That's a different sound than if my mouth is totally closed and there's no space inside. It's kind of all coming through my nose. Mm. Um, well, I guess when we're humming, the sound is always coming through our nose, no matter how rich and resonant it is. However, you could hear the difference in tone quality. Um, okay, so that's not an exercise I will lead you through. We'll just throw it out there to do on your own. Um, Nick was saying it's interesting to release one's vibrato on purpose, though on some practices, I get so immersed in the storytelling of a song, I tend to add a bit more vibrato than necessary. You know, it's truly singer's choice. Um, I would only jump in and say, like, hey, let's consider a different tactic here if you really want to capture a specific sound and you feel you're not doing that well. Um, I in general, I would not restrict your vibrato. I would say if your vibrato is appearing, it's natural, it's good. I don't want to, tamp down on it. Anyways, okay, so moving on. We've got the tremolo, we're addressing resonant space and relaxation. Then we also have this thing called a wobble, an overly slow or wide vibrato. And usually that's caused by a lack of breath support or body engagement, sometimes caused by a lack of muscle tone, especially in elderly singers. But I have to say again, if your vibrato just happens to be slower, that is not inherently an issue. If it's so slow that it bothers you, then this is what we're addressing. So, first exercise, we're going to engage our body a little bit. Place your hands on your low belly, and actually, you can have one hand on your low belly and one hand on your rib cage, and give me 2 pulses. S, s. Feel that natural engagement. Something should be moving, okay? Your low belly, the muscles between your ribs. I feel mine flexing out. You might feel yours crunching in. S, 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 s. The only word of caution I would say about crunching in is if you're letting your abdomen crunch in when you hiss, chances are your upper abdomen or your solar plexus is also crunching in, and that's not a good habit for singing. So place a hand on your upper belly and tell me, or you don't have to tell me, but just um, know for yourself, is your upper belly crunching in or hardening? S- s- s. If it is, and then I go to sing, ah, ah, It's quite a tense sound. Um, I've said before, it can kinda make you sound like you're constipated if you're squeezing your solar plexus, as a way of controlling your airflow. So, in general, I prefer the flexing or pushing out method. It is possible for you to, with your low belly, crunch your low belly in, but let the upper belly be free and soft and pop out. S s s. That is possible. Um, just throwing that out there, that really is the only big no-no. Like, there's a lot of different breath strategies, but if you're crunching your upper belly or solar plexus, I can't think of a single voice teacher who would tell you that's a good idea. Um, so, if that's happening, I would say try the opposite way. Try letting your belly relax or push out, s s s, instead of crunching in. Okay, so that's a way to engage our body, and then we want to keep that engagement when we go to sing. So we'll go s, s, he, two hisses, two he's, and you're feeling your belly pulse both times. S, s, he. That's just a way to get the body involved, get a little bit of support. Um, and then sustaining to see what's our vibrato doing. Is it as slow as it was before, or did it speed up with that extra support? Um, I was somewhere around there. Let's give that a try. Just a few of these. You can choose any A you want. So here's one A, here's another, here's another. Okay, don't care what you sing on, but we're hiss, hiss, he. Nice strong engagement with the low belly. Ready? S, s, he. Walking up. S, s, he. S, s, he. S, s, he. Okay. If you liked that, you can keep going. And definitely, if that made a big difference for you and you tend to have a very slow vibrato, then that could be the culprit that your body is not engaging when you sing. Um, I promise it does become second nature over time, but I would say if you are in that boat, um, if your body is not really engaged when you sing and uh, you want it to be, um, then I would say always start your practice with some sort of breath exercise that you're pairing breath to sound making, or you're pairing body engagement to sound making. And that's what we're doing there. So your body naturally engages on a hiss, and then we're asking it to engage again when we make sound. S, s, he. If I don't do that, it's very possible for me to just make sound from my throat, or feeling like it's from my throat up, like I'm just a head that's singing, not a full body. He. Okay, that's what it feels like and sounds like when my body's not engaged. Um, versus he, where I'm feeling that engagement. So again, if that's you, start your practice with some awareness of your body and an exercise that is pairing body engagement to sound making. And then over time, it does become more natural feeling. By the way, we've got about 10 more minutes of vibrato work, and then we'll just be Q&A time. So if you have questions, you could start putting those in the chat. Um, Mark asks, does changing the way you're sitting help, as I'm stuck sitting and moving my arms is normally my main way of moving, so it's not relaxing at all. Um, I so Mark is kind of asking back about when I was having you walk around the room to relax and kind of get you out of singing mode, if singing mode is tense for you, um, then yes, I think so. If that's the goal, is to kind of get yourself out of singing mode to find a more chill way of making sound, then for sure, changing the way that you're sitting would help. Um, or standing or lying down, trying different postures. Okay. Um, Last thing to help speed up a vibrato that is too slow is using a diphthong ending in an E. So I got this from another 30-day singer teacher, Abram. He likes to teach vibrato with the word night. And so he'll have the students say, night, night. And the goal there is using that nice narrow E vowel helps kind of trigger a faster vibrato. So, again, that's not an exercise I will necessarily take you through, but just give it a try. My reference for that faster vibrato sound is kind of like a Disney, old school Disney, um, maybe Snow White. I'm wishing. And she has this very fast vibrato. Um, so if you can channel your inner Snow White, night, night, that can help, especially if your vibrato is on the slower side. Last thing for folks with very, very slow vibrato is don't neglect straight tone singing. In general, I would say the singers who are most likely to struggle with a wobble aren't really used to controlling their vibrato in general. They're not choosing when their vibrato should or shouldn't occur. So simply the fact of you choosing to sing straight tone or just straight tone the whole way, simply that will get you closer to being able to control that vibrato speed as well. Okay, so when we go to apply this to songs, not just exercises, um, if you're on that step of choosing where you want vibrato to be, um, I would say if you have a reference, that's great. So if you are singing a song by a specific artist, then noticing where they're putting vibrato is usually a good place to start. But if you are doing this on your own, or you're not really using a particular singer's reference for yourself, then the few spots that we would place vibrato typically are going to be at the ends of phrases, at the end of a long sustain, or at a spot where you want to draw specific attention or bring out a little bit more emotion. So, if we went back to our example from before, can't help falling in love with you. And again, I'm going to be in the key of D since I think that'll work best for most voices, high and low. Um, we can think about these first ends of phrases. So, wise men say, right? If I don't add vibrato there, it's not wrong, but it might sound a little bit unfinished. Wise men say, kind of feels like I'm leaving you hanging a little bit. Um, Another spot would be sustained words. But I can't help. You don't need to add vibrato on each of those sustained words, but it's a good idea, at least one of them. If I don't add any, but I can't help. Again, it sounds just a little bit unfinished. Um, and then last, where do we want extra emphasis or emotional connection to come through? Um, someone, I think it was Mark, mentioned before. Yeah. Mark mentioned before the words love and you. That was where his vibrato was naturally coming in. Falling in love with you. And that makes sense from an emotional or storytelling standpoint that the word love, little vibrato couldn't hurt. And then you might again sound a little bit unfinished or a little flat if I just sing, falling in love with you. Right? Okay. So I'm going to play these chords for you. Have that in mind. If you're still just trying to let your vibrato go where it wants to come in, that's totally fine. But if you're at the point where you're adding vibrato on purpose at specific spots, then I would say prioritize the ends of phrases, sustained pitches, and then if you have more space in your brain to think about this, spots for special emphasis or emotion that you want to come through. So your starting pitch is right here or here. And I'll count you off. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay. So same kind of idea there for the second, shall I stay? The chorus, like a river flows. You're probably not going to get as much vibrato opportunity unless it's at the end of a phrase. So, like a river flows surely to the sea. I'm not really sensing or noticing more spots to add vibrato. Darling, maybe on darling, darling, so it goes. And then the end there is a little bit slower, more free. Some things are meant to be. You might add it wherever. Okay, let's try that if you know the chorus. Like. So you're either starting on C sharp 4 or C sharp 3. 2, ready, go. Like a river flows. All right. How'd it go? I hope well. I chose this song because most people know it. And there's also an emotional component to it. So we talked about this last week, and I just want to reiterate, um, choosing songs with a natural emotional connection for you, that's going to encourage that vibrato, without you really having to think about it. So, we worked on a lot of technical things. We've done a lot of exercises last week and this week, but don't neglect that natural component of you as a person with emotion and a storyteller. I was just blown away, and I shared this last week, but I was blown away when I was working with a student. He had no vibrato happening, and then I asked him to focus on the lyrics and the story he was telling, and immediately there was vibrato, there was stylization, so that is not to be neglected. Um, and I also wanna say, uh, this skill of placing your vibrato, um, purposefully and even alternating or changing your vibrato speed, these aren't skills that every singer needs. Um, I am aware of this because having sung in choirs and done session singing, there are plenty of times where either the choir director or the producer will want something specific with vibrato. So they'll say, "Okay, no vibrato here, add vibrato here." So that's a skill that as a choral and session singer I've had to develop. But for the average singer, singer-songwriter, hobbyist, this isn't necessary. Um, it's not necessary to be a good singer. So I just want to throw that out there at the end here before Q&A time. Um, Mark was saying you mentioned people have different speeds of vibrato, and some singers like Amanda Seyfried have much quicker vibrato. Yeah, if you take a listen to her singing, you're gonna hear quick quick vibrato speed. Is there a way to train your voice to alternate so you can have a faster vibrato, or is it literally just luck of the draw? Here's my thought. My thought is your natural vibrato speed probably won't change unless there's something about your technique that you're changing across the board. Um, However, so I'm speaking from personal experience here. I'm not speaking from like this is research based. um, for me, there's a speed that just naturally comes when I let my vibrato go. If I want it to be faster, as in the Snow White, "I'm wishing for the one I love." I can trigger that, but that doesn't feel like my natural vibrato. My natural vibrato, "I'm wishing for the one I love," is slower. And by that same token, I could slow down the vibrato speed, but it would not feel like my natural vibrato speed. It would feel like I'm doing a bit of a character voice, or at least that I'm changing that speed intentionally. I could imagine, though, I could imagine a world in which you listen to a lot of, let's say, you listen to a lot of R&B music or gospel music. I would say in that genre, generally, there's a bit of a slower vibrato speed. Um, And so if you're listening to a lot of a particular genre, singing a lot of it, um, you might naturally find that your vibrato slows to match or speeds up to match what it is that you're listening to a lot. Um, it's kind of a different story whether you're talking about a vocal exercise where like, typically, we're not trying to sound a certain way with a vocal exercise, we're just singing and naturally our sound is coming out. And then, um, that versus singing a song in a specific genre. So, again, personal experience that I'm speaking from, I personally think that your natural vibrato speed probably is more or less what it is. Um with the caveat of, if you're changing something fundamental about your technique across the board and or if you're listening to a certain genre quite a lot and being heavily influenced by that, I could imagine that slowing or speeding up your vibrato over time. Um, Nick said, with breathiness, can you generally reduce that with adding a different consonant, or is it more technical than that? I feel like on some notes, there's a slight increase of breathiness. Yeah, so you can always pretty much always reduce breathiness with the addition of any consonant. So let's say you're singing ah, adding any consonant ga 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 or na 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 immediately is going to be easier for you to find that vocal fold closure. Um, the consonant itself does matter though. So what we would typically go toward if the aim is reducing breathiness, the first thing that I would try is a what we could call a medium consonant. So there's not a ton of airflow. Um, Something like an M or an N, ma ma ma, or na na na, as opposed to something like a soft consonant that has a lot of airflow. S, s, th, tha, 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 right? So if you're over compressed and you want more airflow, then we would go to the soft consonant side of things. In general, a medium consonant, M, N, something like that. And then if you're really struggling to hold it together, then I would try a harder consonant, something like a B, B, or a G, G sound. B, 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 or G, G, G. Um, and then even in the context of songs themselves, sometimes consonants are tricky. They pose issues, and we modify the consonant to make it a little more singable. Let me find that link for you. And then Austin was asking, is grit or distortion bad for your voice, or is there a healthy way to do it? If so, how? So, Austin, I am not the expert on grit or distortion. However, I can tell you confidently that it can be done healthily. Um, Good teachers to look at for that, I believe Chris Sleepy is one. So I'm going to put his channel right here. He's a good voice teacher and talks about distortion. Another teacher, let me see if he has um, I don't know if he has a channel here on YouTube. Okay, yeah, he does. So it's Matthew Johnson, Elite Singer. So I'm going to put his channel here as well. He specializes in distortion, and both of them are great teachers with what I consider solid technique, and so that would be a good place for you to start. Another big name, kind of Jamie Vendera and Melissa Cross as well. So let me Jamie Vendera and Melissa Cross. Those are two other big well-known names in the voice teaching world, and they specialize in distortion, so I won't even go into, a topic that I don't have enough experience about to, you know, or enough experience with to share anything really useful for you, but I would say check out those other teachers who specialize in that. Um, and yes, absolutely. YouTube is such a mixed bag. There's great information and there's questionable information. So I would say don't rely on views quite as much. You might have, some people screaming and getting a lot of views for it, but best to go with a known, trained vocal coach for this area, because that is one thing we can also say for sure. When you're attempting grit and distortion on your own, it is something you could hurt yourself with. So you would definitely want some professional guidance and not just a singer who does it themselves and thinks that they can teach. Okay. Um, Mark, I asked for the purpose of character singing as I'm primarily an actor. So if I'm required to sing, and like you said about Disney and Snow White singing, the quicker vibrato has a musical or empty feel. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, for that, then you can absolutely utilize that faster vibrato when you're in a character voice, when you're channeling that style. My whole point was just, will that become your natural vibrato speed? That I'm not quite as sure about. Um, and then Mark, like you said, it would depend on the genre or situation, but I wondered if being able to sound that way would be a useful tool to have as you've worked in musical theater. Yeah, yeah, I think definitely. For me, when it comes to vibrato speed, the way that I learn best is just by listening and imitation. I'm not really thinking about the technical side of things. I'm just doing character voices. Um, but yeah, I do think so. I think, it depends on what am I trying to say? It depends on the era of musical theater as well. Um, I don't think all contemporary musical theater singing has a faster vibrato speed, and it's possible that older musical theater, so kind of, golden age or golden era musical theater might even be a little more operatic, so not necessarily fast, just, you know, strong and present. Um, but yes, I would agree, and I would encourage you to do lots of listening, and then maybe some of the exercises that we did today on, fixing a wobble, so using that diphthong, the "I," and, engaging with your body a little bit more, feeling nice, strong engagement. Closed vowels like E, to me, way easier to get your vibrato moving quickly than something really open like an "oh" or "a." Feels like it kind of lends itself more to a slower vibrato speed. Um, so play around with that. See if there are any specific singers that you listen to that kind of bring that out in you, or vowels that you sing on where it's easier to get that kind of fluttery vibrato. Um, yeah, use what works. Use what works. I I opened up this other tab for Nick, and I never found that video for you, so I'm going to look for it right now. So that was on consonants, and the video is "Stop Your Voice from Cracking with Consonants." So this, I think, is related to what you're asking. Um, and then the other one I would recommend for you would be an entire hour. I can't believe I did an entire hour on consonants, but I did. So, working with consonants, how to train and troubleshoot, and that's a live lesson just like this one, talking about consonants. Wow, what a thrill. All right. Few minutes left if you have any last burning questions. Next week's live lesson, just to give you a look ahead, will be another vocal workout, this time R&B focused. So we did a pop vocal workout, and then the lesson after that, the week after that, we'll be talking about the purpose of vocal exercises. So, why do we do vocal exercises in general? But then, what's the purpose of specific ones that you might encounter? So, specific sounds, specific patterns, basically taking you into the mind of a voice teacher. Why the heck is a voice teacher asking me to sing on this bratty nay 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 sound or this dopey bub bub bub? What's the point? When should I use that in my singing? So, if you would like to think more like a voice teacher, then that would be a good one to attend. Um, Sequel on vowels. Yeah, I mean, we really can't say enough about vowels. I think that would be a good idea. And then, Nick, what's your go to method for remembering harmony, whether in a big group or duet? Sometimes I've reverted to match the other singing partner instead of focusing on my own. Excellent question. For me, because I learned to sight read using solfege, that's the do re mi fa sol la ti do. I'm thinking about solfege, and anytime I have a harmony part, I'm writing out the solfege to remind myself. Particularly if I'm creating that harmony for myself, I write down the solfege. Um, so that's my system. I would say if you don't have a system like that, then I would write down whether you're above or below the melody so that oh, so fun. You guys are awesome. Um, I would write down, are you above the melody or below? And then if you can get specific about the starting interval, that would be even better. Um, Having the starting pitch as well, just to get you on the right foot, get you off on the right foot. Um, But yeah, I think that's at least a good place to start is knowing, am I generally sitting above the melody or below it? Um, and then any other specifics you can write down, intervals, pitches. It could help as well if this is a song with harmony, like, on the sheet music, using sheet music so you can visualize because sometimes the parts are gonna cross. Um, okay. So then, yeah, Nick, you might be singing a lower harm in general. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I wish I could be there for that fun meeting. Enjoy. I'll see you all next week. Thank you for being here. I hope you found some helpful tidbit in your own vibrato practice and hope you have a good rest of your evening or morning, whatever time of day. Bye.